Alright, I'm going to show you guys how to make a Flex Android application with a initial login screen. So the user inputs their username and password. The application will go out, check your mySQL server with a PHP backend, and see if the username and password matches. If it does, it'll let it go onto another view. If not, it will deny you. So I have a database created, which is YouTube database. It's a tutorial table, and then I have one row of data in here, which is username, which is Mike, and user pass, which is a SHA-256 hash of my password. And you hash passwords in case if you're not using SSL, you don't want to be transmitting a user's password plain text or storing it plain text in your database. So you hash the passwords, and I'll show you how to do this in your application. So let's look at our PHP script. I'll post all of this on my site so you guys can grab it and play with it, so don't worry if I'm going too fast. But we have two posts that we will be getting from the application, which is our username and password. We have a function that calls the database, and it queries it for the user pass, and it selects it where username equals username gets the password. If it does return something, it will return it, else it returns 0. So if the return from this function equals our user pass, then it will echo accept, else it echoes deny. So let's test this out to make sure it works. I'm using my HTTP Assistant program that I've built, and this will let you test your REST-based web services. And if you go to httpassistant.com, it's not out yet, but if you click Encoder Assistant, this is a free download that I built so you can hash strings or base64 encode them when working on these projects. So download that, and what we will do is we will put in our URL to this PHP, which is I'm running on my local host in a folder login tutorial, and it's named select. This will be a post, and we need to input our post parameters. So username equals Mike, and user pass equals a hash of my password. So we'll start up Encoder Assistant. Our type will be SHA-256, and my password was Mike. And then to make your hashes unique, you add a salt to the front end or wherever you creatively put it to make your hashes unique from any other application just sending a regular SHA-256 hash. So I just did Mike salt. We'll encode this, double click to copy it to the clipboard, and we'll paste it in here. We'll query the service, and because username Mike and username pass is the same as what's in the database, we get an accept as return. If I delete one character off this and query it again, we get a denied as our return. So we know our backend works fine. So now it's time to build the app. So let's jump into Flash Builder here, and we will hit New Flex Mobile Project. We'll call this YouTube Login Tutorial. We'll hit next. We want a view based, and we'll call this login view, and make sure we have internet selected as our permission. And we'll hit finish and let this load this file. Alright, now we need to make our UI. So we need a label, say enter username. We'll have a text input of ID username. Another label for password. And then on this text input, let's call it user pass. And there's a property of text inputs in flex, which is display as password, and it will mask the characters inside there. And we need a button. We'll give it a label of login and a click event, and we'll just auto generate that. And we need a layout. So start typing the word layout and hit Control Space to get code completion. And at the very bottom we have this vertical layout. Let's go ahead and click that, and that will give us our vertical layout. I'm going to move my script block to the bottom just because that's where I prefer it. And let's look at our design. So that's a pretty good user login view. So now we need to write the code to query our web service. So we want a var L, and this will be a URL loader. And we'll create this object, and then we need a request, which is URL request. And this is where we put in our HTTP address to the web server. So we'll add that in there. And now we need a variables object to put our username and user pass posts into. So we say vars, and it's URL variables. Okay, so now how do we make our application hash the user password to send off? There is a open source library from Adobe. If you go to GitHub, it's AS3 core lib, and you can go ahead and download this, and you will get a zip file, and just inside your zip file there is, let me find it, there we go. Alright, so it's Mike Chambers core lib, and then inside source there's this COM folder. So take this COM folder and drag it over to your source folder, and you'll see a new package in your project, which is COM Adobe. And inside that there will be this crypto package. If you open it up, you can see all the hashing algorithms that they give you, and we'll be using SHA-256. Let's collapse that, and we will populate our variables. So vars dot username equals username dot text, vars dot user pass equals, and we want this SHA-256, so you may be tempted to say vars sh is type SHA-256, but because this is a utilities class, we can just start typing SHA and then say 256 in the COM Adobe crypto package, and we'll say dot and then hash, and we want to hash our user pass dot text, and we need our salt added onto the end of this. And the salt can be your own unique identifier that you choose. So now we need to set our request object's method and tell it that we're using a post instead of a get. So URL request method, and it'll be dot and then post. And now we need to assign these variables to our request method data property. So we say r.data equals vars. Now the last thing we have to do is add event listeners to our loader object. So we say l.add event listener. We want the complete event, and we want l.io error event, just in case we have an error. And if you're using Flash Builder 4.5, you can hit Command 1 on Mac or Control 1 on PC to get code assist. We'll say generate event handler for both of these, and it generates both these event handlers. So last thing we have to do up here in our click is we need to tell our loader to load and then our request object, and this will make the request to the server. So on our error, let's just do a trace. We'll say, we'll call it a URL error, and then on our complete event, we need to get the data object from this event. So we say if event target, which is the loader is the target of this event, and we want the data property of that, and we want this equal to accept. So if the data which it returns from this equals accept, which means they all match, then we want to go to a new view. So let's create this view. We'll right click on your views package, hit new component. We'll call this success view, hit finish. Let's just add a layout to this, and we will add this label to it so it says success if the user enters the right username and password. So if the target.data equals accept, then we want to call our navigator, and we want to push a view, which is views.successView. Alright, now if we return a denied, which is anything other than accept, we can just say else. We'll trace for now wrong pass. Alright, so let's see if we can run this. Get that out of the way. We'll say we'll run it on desktop, debug, and I'll put in my username, which is Mike, and my password, which is MIKE. And because our salt's already handled by the application, we'll hit login, and we have success. If we go back, we can put Mike, and then just add some stuff where our password's obviously wrong. We can see our trace down here, which says wrong pass. So that's how you do it. I will put all my code up on my site so you guys can grab the PHP code and all the Flex Mobile stuff and do whatever you want with it and have fun. So see you guys later.